Hey, what's up folks? This is Keith and you're watching Barber's Auto Help. If you're watching this video, you probably are working on a vehicle that is low on Freon and are scratching your head as to where the Freon is leaking out from. You may even suspect the evaporator core is leaking, but are unsure and you really don't want to be wrong about it, especially considering the amount of work required to replace it. In this video, I'm going to share some techniques and information that hopefully will make you feel a little bit more confident in making that call. Some of this you may already know, and some you may not. Now, before we get into it, I suggest that if you're working on a vehicle, be sure that the vehicle is off, that the vehicle is placed in park, and the parking brake is applied. I also suggest that the vehicle be on a flat, level surface when working on the vehicle. I would also advise chalking the wheels. Note that lifting your vehicle may be required to perform some of these tests. Information on how to properly and safely lift and support your vehicle is not found in this video. You need to obtain that information elsewhere. Now let's get into it. Now, believe it or not, sometimes you can get a good idea that the evaporator core is leaking just by using your nose. Of course, that's if you have a very bad evaporator core leak. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not advocating for anybody to go out and huff Freon. It's just that sometimes when the evaporator core is leaking badly, you can actually notice it inside the passenger compartment. And I would say if you do smell it in there, I wouldn't hang out inside the passenger compartment for any length of time. The stuff is actually really bad for you. And it's actually a very familiar smell to me. It kind of smells like a box of Band-Aids that you've just opened up. Well, it smells this way to me anyway, and I've heard other technicians describe it this way as well. So that's your first clue, like I said, if it's leaking that bad. Typically, however, discovering that the evaporator core is leaking requires a little more. Probably the most common way of finding this leak is the use of a sniffer or electronic refrigerant leak detector. These tools can be useful, however, not every leak detector is created equal. You really have to have a good machine and know how to use it in order to be accurate, and these machines can be very expensive. Typically, my go-to when using this type of machine is to use the sniffer around the AC drain tube, and that's located on the bottom of the firewall usually, probably on the passenger side for most vehicles. This location does vary, however. And this is where the condensation from the evaporator core leaks out of the HVAC case. Of course, when you're sniffing around this area, you got to be careful not to get the tip of the sniffer wet. I like to place it just below the drain when testing. Sometimes this drain is not all that accessible, and in those cases, I may sniff for a leak inside the vehicle underneath the HVAC case. And you can also place the sniffer in one of the front registers of the AC system and turn the fan on to detect potential leaks as well. Word of caution though, in some cases, depending on the sniffer, you may get a false reading. This is where it helps to be familiar with your equipment and how it works. I can make mine go off just by blowing in it. Now, not all the time will a sniffer help. In these cases, I recommend the use of a UV light. In my experience, most vehicles come equipped with refrigerant dye installed from the factory. So the use of a dye light would be fitting in most cases. Of course, the use of special glasses, usually the ones that come with the dye light, will be recommended. It really helps the color of the dye to pop and to stand out. Normally, when the evaporator core is leaking, when using the UV light, you can see dye residue inside or just outside of the condensation drain of the HVAC case. And that's a good indication that the evaporator core is leaking. This method, in my opinion, is one of the best ways to find out if the evaporator core is leaking, as it leaves little room for doubt. However, some drains may not be visible. In those cases, you may be able to catch the condensation drip with a glass jar. Once enough water is caught, you can then take the glass jar into a dark room and shine the UV dye light into it. It may glow green if dye is present. Now just know, sometimes your imagination can get the best of you in this case. You may think the dye is present when it actually isn't. A green tint to the water can be caused by a few things other than the dye, including your imagination. This method, in my opinion, is not the most accurate, so just keep that in mind. So what other information could I give you concerning this? I guess I'd have to say that diagnosing a leaking evaporator core is not one of the easier things to figure out on a vehicle. One of the best pieces of advice I could give you is to really make certain that you don't have a leak in the AC system outside of the evaporator core. Most components of the AC system are usually way easier to inspect and check for leaks than the evaporator core. So take your time and do a good inspection of the other parts of the AC system and ensure that they aren't leaking before you even start to look at the evaporator core. Typically, when you rule out the other sources of refrigerant leaks, the evaporator core is usually the culprit. I will also say that sometimes it's not going to be a black and white type scenario. The tests described earlier may leave you empty-handed, and in some cases, you just got to take the evaporator core out and inspect it. There's been many times where I took the evaporator core out and inspected it with a dye light, and I found green staining on it, just like what you see right here. And boy, I breathe a sigh of relief whenever I see that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please note the methods shown in this video are not foolproof. Diagnosing evaporator cores can be very challenging. These are just a few things that you can do to hopefully help you to diagnose a leaking evaporator core. There is no guarantee that by using these methods, you will be correct, but these are things I do, and they help me greatly. So I appreciate you watching, guys. Please read the entire description down below before you apply this knowledge. There may be some things I need to clarify. That's where I do that. And also please read the disclaimer at the very end of it. And if you found this video helpful, consider becoming a member of my channel. There'll be a link in the description below. What you'll get with the membership is priority replies to comments. I'll get a notification whenever you make a comment. I'll see the loyalty badge next to your name, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one.